Before this video starts, if you enjoyed this video, there are many more like it already on the channel with many more like it to come in the future, so subscribe. I'm trying to hit 125,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I would really appreciate it. I upload daily on this channel, so if you're looking for some consistent basketball talk, this is the place for it. Also, drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second. It makes a massive difference. Also, there's going to be a second video today on the second game of the NBA Finals. You'll get my reaction to that. It's looking like the result is already kind of set in stone, but I'm hopeful that the Heat will at least do something worthy of the series not being completely washed by now, but I guess we'll see. So I wanted to take today to talk about the Denver Nuggets. I made a video on the Boston Celtics because there was a big reaction to people saying they should rebuild. That same reaction hasn't really existed with the Nuggets, so I wanted to make an actual video on it just talking about the bright future, because I think for both the Celtics and the Denver Nuggets, even though they lost, I think they should take their conference finals appearances as a positive, especially the Denver Nuggets, because they were awesome this year in the playoffs, as we all know. First, they went down 3-1 to the Denver Nuggets, which I don't know how much credit I want to give them just because the Nuggets were not the favorite in that series. However, Donovan Mitchell was also playing like a freak in that series, more so than anyone anticipated him being. So I guess they were just kind of the Utah Jazz on steroids, but you know what I mean. So they beat them after going down 3-1. Then comes the second round. They faced the team that many people, including myself, believed would win the 2020 championship, and they beat them in 7 games after going down 3-1. They obviously did not beat the Lakers, but they did have some injury issues, which I think kind of prevented them from making that a series. But even then, every game pretty much in that series was a close game, and that's pretty good. Like, yeah, you didn't beat them, and 5 games doesn't look good, but if it's close if it's a close 5 games, yeah, you didn't close out a lot of those games, but you gave them a fight through the entire time. And this is a team that is pretty much going to win the 2020 championship. So the Denver Nuggets have a bright future, and the main reason why being this production and this dominance came from Jamal Murray and Nicola Yokic, both of which are 25 and under. I think Jokic is 25. I don't know. I don't do any research for these unscripted videos. They're both young-ish, at least, is my point. And then on top of that, they have this guy, Michael Porter Jr., who looks like he is going to be a dominant scorer for many years to come, providing injury doesn't prevent that. So you have these 3 guys as your core team that have a very bright future, and I want to talk about all of them. So Jamal Murray is the most interesting one right out of the gate because we don't know how good he actually is, because in the bubble he was unbelievable, but he's not that all the time. And regular season Jamal Murray was kind of one of the more disappointing players from his draft class, and he's consistently been a little bit disappointing, and then he just turns around and he's playing like a superstar in the playoffs. In the playoffs, he averaged 26 points per game, 6.6 assists, shooting 50% from the field and 45% from 3 on 7.2 attempts per game. That is a 62.5% true shooting percentage. That's in comparison to his regular season numbers of 18.5 points, 4.8 assists on 56% true shooting. Will he maintain this? Well, I don't think he's going to keep shooting 45% from 3 on 7 attempts, but I do like the fact that he's taking 7 attempts, and if he could keep that at like 40%, and honestly, I'd like to see him shoot even more threes, but if he was shooting 7 threes on like 40%, I think the guy'd be like a 22 point per game scorer. He made big strides as a playmaker as well in this series, so like a 22, 6, and 5 on good splits is a very good player to have. And even though Jamal Murray was amazing in the playoffs, I don't think he's going to be the lead shot taker on this team in the future, because I think that's going to be Michael Porter Jr. Now, he had an interesting bubble. He had this thing where he was like complaining about the shot attempts he was getting as a rookie, which don't know about that one, dude. Also, don't very much care for Michael Porter because he is I won't say it because it might get me demonetized, but blank denier, and fuck those people. But that doesn't change what he is on the court, and what he is on the court is a motherfucking bucket, because the guy is a very good 3-point shooter. He is pretty damn athletic, he is very lanky, and he knows how to play off ball. And pair that with Nikola Yokic, who is maybe the best passing player in the league. I don't know why every commentator prefaces that he's the best passing big all the time, because no shit. It's really a question of if he's the best passing player, period. Now, I still think it's probably LeBron James and Chris Paul and maybe, not Lonzo. But I do think Jokic is right there in that conversation. So yeah, that's a side tangent. But having that level of playmaker paired with a guy who is almost 7 feet tall with long arms, who is very athletic, who knows how to cut to the basket is a deadly combination, because Jokic is fantastic at throwing backdoor passes and Michael Porter Jr. is fantastic at getting backdoor cuts. So match made in heaven. Genuinely think Porter can score like 6 points a game alone on just those cuts. So that's huge. 3-point shot. Very good. In the 7 games that he was finally given minutes in the bubble, he averaged 22 points, 8.5 rebounds, 1 block, and 1 steal, and he shot 55% from the field and 42% from 3 on 6 attempts per game. So Michael Porter Jr. is legit, and I think by next season, he's going to be, like literally by next season, he's going to be nearly a 20-point per game guy, because he should be their starting power forward or small forward, depending on what they want to do with Paul Millsap, but I think he's better at power forward, and yeah, he's going to be awesome. And Nikola Yokic is Nikola Yokic, and I would like to apologize to him for ranking Damian Lillard over him, because as we saw from Jokic in the playoffs, as he proved last year really, and I just kind of forgot, he's the real deal. He turns it up to a new level in the playoffs. The guy is not like a conventional scorer whatsoever, but doesn't matter. He scores in the post all day. His jump shot hits in the playoffs. His playmaking is amazing. We saw teams like the Clippers try and double team him, and that did not end well because of his playmaking. So he's both this ridiculous scoring threat, and if you try to fix that by bringing help, he's gonna punish you for it. So Nikola Yokic is a fucking boss, and having him, Jamal Murray, who can score like crazy, Michael Porter Jr., who can not only score like crazy but also plays very well off of Nikola Jokic, is kind of unfair. And offensively, these three combined, I think, could create the greatest offensive trio in the history of basketball. Now, don't get me wrong, they're not as talented as what is probably the best right now, which is Steph, Klay, and Kevin Durant, but the three as a trio, considering how they work within the system with Jokic's playmaking, they could all play off of each other so well that it mitigates that difference in talent. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it's possible. I understand that's a bold take, but like, I really believe in these guys, Michael Porter Jr. specifically, because that guy, he could average 30 one day if he wanted to, or if the team allowed him to, because he's just that good offensively. It's like literally just once he figures out ball handling, there's no stopping that guy with his jump shot and his ability to play off ball. There's no stopping him, and I think he's going to get a whole lot of buckets in Denver. Let's talk about the rest of the team now. They need to re-sign Jeremy Grant. I know it's a meme at this point how much I love Jeremy Grant, and that's pretty valid, but I really like Jeremy Grant, and I think he works fantastically for what Denver does, especially with them being pretty lacking on the defensive end. Here is my profile picture on Twitter, not photoshopped, and also they need to keep around Gary Harris. His three-point shot was kind of starting to drop in the playoffs, and he's a good defensive guy. Really, I think their lineup should be Jamal, Harris, Grant, Michael Porter Jr., and Jokic. So obviously, I really don't think Paul Millsap is all that amazing. Now, he was good defensively this year, but his three-point shot is very unreliable, and offensively, outside of shooting the ball and getting like a layup that when he's left open, he's not really contributing all that much on the offensive end. So as a result, I'm kind of pro letting him go, re-signing Jeremy Grant, and then filling in your bench with some defensive guys. Now, as for that bench, I think Monte Morris is a good leading option off of the bench, so you hold on to him. Will Barton can also be a guy once he comes back from injury, and then the rest of that bench unit should really be defensive guys. I like Mason Plumlee, but I really think they'd be better off with like a real legit defensive five as your backup. That would be cool. And then someone like Torrey Craig, but who can actually shoot the ball. Don't know where you find that, but if you can get a 3-and-D guy in there who's very good defensively, that's huge. Because the thing that's going to be the struggle for the Denver Nuggets down the line that would hold them back from being a championship team would be the defense. So you got to fill in that bench with as much defense as you can. Now, the Denver Nuggets also run a pretty good defensive system, which makes them a lot better on that end than their personnel is, but especially with Michael Porter Jr., that can be a big weakness for them. Got to work on that. There's also internal improvement, really, with Michael Porter Jr. Luckily with him, although not necessarily luckily he has effort on that end, and he cares about defense. Problem is, he has one of the worst defensive IQs that I've ever seen in my life. Like, he has no idea where to be on the court. He jumps for things he shouldn't jump for, reaches for things he shouldn't reach for, doesn't know where to be on the court, leaves guys open all the time just because he's lost. The effort's there. the actual knowledge of how to play defense is not. So work on getting Michael Porter Jr. better with the IQ on the defensive end of the court. Offensively, he's ridiculous, but defensively, if he understands how to play defense, he has the effort, he has the length, he has the athleticism. He could be a pretty good defensive player, but as of right now, that's not what he is, and defensive IQ is one of the toughest things in basketball to teach because you just kind of know it or you don't. So that's something that needs work on, but these three can be a foundation of a championship team. I feel pretty confident saying that, and especially if Michael Porter Jr. hits his ceiling, because his ceiling is like 80% of what Kevin Durant was offensively, which is high praise, but I think he's deserving of it. So Michael Porter Jr. is going to be awesome. Jamal Murray might not be as awesome as he was in the playoffs, but he's still pretty damn good, and Nicola Yokic is a boss. So yeah, that's the Denver Nuggets. Fill in with some defense, and I think they have a very bright future. I think they're going to win a championship within the next 10 years. If you want to support this content outside of just your like and subscription, I have a Patreon where you can get some extra content. I'm doing a free 2K talk over there, which is going to come out on Sunday or Saturday, one of those two. Depends on what my schedule has me doing, but yeah. And then also there's going to be a Discord server. I'm working on setting that up right now. It's kind of a bitch. So yeah, that's the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.